Alright YouTube, here we are back for the final part of the compressor odyssey, which is reassembly and testing. So I realized looking at my last two videos, I could be a little bit briefer. I'm going to try and see how quick I can do this. There might be a couple of video cuts as I cut out some of the boring parts. Let me go ahead and bring you in here and we'll get a close-up of what I'm doing. I've gone ahead and pre-taped, Teflon taped everything that I'm going to need to seal up as part of this assembly, and we'll go from there. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is attach the pressure switch. So I'm going to kind of hand tighten it. Don't want to put too much pressure on the rest of the assembly. Okay, that's perfect, because I think one more half turn will get this down here where I want it to be. This one is a Craftsman air compressor. So this happens to be a 19 mil socket. I think that is about exactly where I want it to be. The next thing I'm going to do is deal with the wiring. So if we look on here, I don't know how visible that is, but basically what it's saying is that the hot line, the line in from the wall, goes on these front. The motor line goes on the back, and then I got my ground connections back here. From the way I disassembled it, I know that it's easier to go ahead and get the grounds in first. So I'm going to go ahead and get that taken care of right now. so my grounds are in. So the motor lines go in the back and the hot lines go in the front. One thing I always suggest, take a picture just to make sure. So it looks like the black lines are on the right and the white lines are on the left. Black hot, white neutral. All right, now I think before I go any further, I'm just going to give it a check, make sure everything's operational. All right. These are the cord plugs. These things are kind of a pain in the ass to get out, but going back in shouldn't be that bad, especially if I go about it the right way. So they basically just clamp around the cord and they pressure pop into the hole. The way that they were in before didn't really lend themselves well to being taken back out. So I'm going to put them in this way so that if I ever need to take them out again, I can squeeze and pop it out. The way it was in before, one of them was like this, so I had to twist it all the way just to get the pliers around it to be able to squeeze it to pop it out. I'm going to use the marks that were on there already to index. All right, there we go. All right, and I'm just going to spread it a little bit to keep pressure. There, that one's in. You know what? It wants to follow the pain in the ass back way because of the crimp in the cord. Alright, well here's hoping I never have to take this thing apart again. Alright. Well, if I have to take it apart again, I'm going to have to deal with twisting it again, so no big deal, I guess. Hopefully it's good to go. One more function test. Alright, there we go. The next thing I need to do is put in the valve here because all of the air lines actually feed into it. So I'm going to go ahead and hand tighten it. This particular one is 22 millimeter. I'm going to hand tighten it. And then I'm going to break out my giant crescent wrench so I can make sure I get the port aligned properly. I'm looking for the port to be right around here. Right now it's about 180 degrees away from that. I think that's about where I want it. Because what I'm looking for is the proper alignment to put in the next piece, which is, let me see, I just bumped the camera. Okay. Which is one of the pressure lines. So it looks like I might need to back it off just a touch to get the angle right. Before I make that decision though, I'm going to go ahead and thread this in. So on these pressure lines, these are pressure seals. So there's no need to tape them up. The pressure of this going on the seal will keep it airtight. This part going in threaded does need to have some Teflon tape on it. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in. And then tighten her down. I expect I'll end up having to adjust this. Let's see what I end up with here. Okay, it should be tightened up. Okay, so I'm going to put that side in a little bit loosely, and then if you notice on this side, I'm almost in line. I think I need to back this off just a touch so I can get it to line up properly. There we go. With these delicate parts, you always make sure you back thread just a little bit to feel it click in. There, I felt the click. Now I can pull it on and know that I'm not going to cross thread it. Alright, so there's that, and there's that. So that was the critical piece for alignment because of it basically being kind of a 90-degree bend. I know that the other pressure line here, that's a fixed point and that's a fixed point, so that should go in pretty smoothly. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these guys down. Let's say they're 1/2 inch. Yep, 1/2 inch. Again, we don't want to go overboard with the tightening. There's a pressure ring inside there. All right, so that's good. This one's kind of a pain in the ass to get to. See if I can get at it from an angle. Okay. Make sure I'm not actually bending the line while I'm doing this. I see what's going on here. It's one of my kids having a little drama inside. Mommy's on duty. Alright, so what I did there was a little bit of a gap forming because of the way that the pressure line was aligned. There's a little bit of flexibility in this line. You don't want to flex it too much. But I think I got it so that the pressure switch is straight and the connections are solid. So let me go ahead and now tighten the connections down in their final alignment. These are 1/2 inch. And that is flimsy, you got to be careful on that. God, that is a bad design. Okay, that's as far as I'm willing to go with that one. All right, solid, solid, we're good. Put the front plate back on. All right. Now we're going to put the other pressure line on. This one should be a smoother fit since the points are more fixed. That guy goes down in there. That guy goes into there. Again, we have pressure fittings and washers and everything, so there's no need for the Teflon tape on these threads. Back this one out a little bit. Threads have caught on that one. So up here on the engine block, you want to be especially careful because you're going into aluminum, at least on this type of compressor. Let me back this one all the way off and get the top one started nicely first. There we go. On two. All right, so I think I'm ready to tighten these guys down. 5/8 up top. All right, we don't want to over torque it. So I'm just putting just a little pressure on it, that's good. Down here I can be a little bit tougher with the brass on brass connection. Alright, I think that's about good. Alright, so if I've done everything properly, we are now sealed between the tank from the motor into the tank, and then the air that goes eventually through your line comes up through here. The air that drives the pressure switch goes in through here, so this is what tells the pressure switch when to cut the motor on and off. And then all I have to do now is assemble the final bits of, see how the camera's pointed, of the main gauge, and then everything coming off here. And I realized, shit, I gotta take this line off. God damn it. I gotta take this line off. Well, now that everything's fitted, it's not a big deal, but I gotta take this line off in order to get the regulator and everything on. But it's good that everything's actually fitted on here before I do this. So this might actually be a good assembly method. This line I know will go right back in. I've taken it off before. Let me go ahead and get the regulator on first. So this is the regulator with this. This will end up being upside down. Which is okay. It's actually easier to read because I like to keep my tools at 100. So we're going to tighten this just hand tight. I don't want to put too much torque on it because all these plastic and shitty components can break very easily. That's probably 5/8. Nope. 9/16. Okay. So this is one of those components that I want to make sure ends up facing the way I need it to face. The last time I had it on, I was able to do that. This time it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a bitch. Yeah, it's not liking me on this one. Okay, so I was hoping to avoid this, but I think I'm going to have to take this off, re-thread it, or reseal it, and then put it back on. So this might actually be good. Like using a wire brush to get all of the Teflon tape off. I'll make sure you get down to bare metal. You don't want any of the old Teflon tape on there before you thread it up again. So with a new layer of Teflon tape, it'll be much more forgiving about where I decide to actually set the angle. All right, there we go. Teflon tape, if I'm screwing on this way, I want the tail end to go that way, which means I'm going to start it wrapping here and come around this way. I generally like to do about 3 passes. You know you've got it right when you're twisting the way that you're going to be tightening and nothing's coming off. All right, so let's see how the regulator goes on now. Crap. Okay, so I need to go a little thicker with the Teflon tape. The reason I'm going thicker with the Teflon tape is that I want it to turn less as I thread it on. So I basically want more material on the threads. All right, let's give that a shot. Check my thread, some of this material off, twist it up, clean it up. And then try threading it. The last time I did this, I was able to get the gauge perfectly aligned to me. I just didn't remember exactly how many turns. Okay, so that's perfect. So this is going to bring the gauge straight up. Do I have one more spin left? Let's see. Perfect. All right, good. So that's a little trick for you guys. If you're not ending up where you really need to be, take it off, try new layering of Teflon tape and put it back on. Now it's time for the 1/4 to 1/8 NPT adapter. That should be 9/16. Yep, okay. I should be able to just use this side. Again, I think this is an aluminum housing. Be careful. And then now the 1/8 inch NPT gauge goes in. Actually might be 7/16. Alright, so I don't need to get it too tight. Want to get it aligned properly. And just a touch more. There we go. Okay. So it's function test time. Gonna pause. All right, YouTube, here we are back for the third part, the final part of the third part of this video, or this series. I had a friend come over while I was shooting the other night, and I had to pause. So all I've done since then off camera is I put the final pressure tube on, and I brought it up to, I put the plug in the bottom, brought it up to pressure, and then I let it sit. The garage was cold, so I let it sit until the pressure stabilized, just because of the air cooling off. Then I marked it with tape on the main pressure gauge here. I let it sit for 24 hours and it didn't lose a pound of pressure. So I know all of my seals are good, tank's holding pressure, everything's good. Earlier today, I pumped some water in, hot water, hottest I can get from the tap. Let it sit, swirled it around, pressurized the tank, and then blew it all out the bottom. I did that a couple of times. I'm just trying to get some of the residual grease from the pressure test out of it. As it sits right now, I have 2.5 gallons of hot water in there, mixed with a little over 40 ounces of this stuff, industrial cleaner and degreaser. So I'm just trying to get as much of the grease out. I'm going to see what comes out when I blow this load out, and if I feel like I need to do it one more time, I have plenty of degreaser to do that. So all I'm going to do here is just do the final assembly of the motor housing and wrap this up, and then know that all I'm going to do off camera after this video is just maybe run another loader through of degreaser to get the tank nice and clean, and then I'll probably just load it up a few times with just air and blow that out before I do the final seal on the drain valve on the bottom, just to make sure everything is free and clear for the drain valve. So the motor housing, it is a Torx 20 T20. For this particular model, have a filter, air filter that goes in here. And then, just a long reach extension for a screwdriver so I can get into the hole. Saw a guy had another video about a Craftsman air compressor, and he didn't want to go and spend the money to get the proper tool to get at these. So the guy actually just butchered the housing, which doesn't even really make sense to me. You get an extension for a Torx bit for no more than $5 or $10. Alright, so I'm just making sure the air filter is still kind of good before I twist this on. So the guy butchered a $40, $50 housing to avoid spending a few bucks just to get a simple extension for a screwdriver. I'm putting the female side of this on first. And then the male side will pop right into it. I guess I should show one thing that I had to do on this particular compressor. When I first got it, the housing was rattling pretty bad. Turned out that where the housing snapped in here or screwed in here, this plastic piece that the housing goes into was cracked, and it was allowing the housing itself to rattle. So I just put some Gorilla Glue all over the cracks on it, and then just to shore it up, I just put a little duct tape around it. And the problem problem solved. Rattle's gone, and it seems to be holding up pretty well. Alright, so that snaps on, and then it gets held in with the final screw here. Alright, everything's assembled, air filter's in good. I have pressure in the tank, a degreaser in the tank. It's holding at about 120 right now. I'm just going to give it about another hour or so of soak and then blow it out. This is really, if you have the same kind of compressor, if you have to get at these recessed screws, this is all you really need. And then, you know, a Torx bit that fits, or whatever other screwdriver bit fits. So all I have to do is put it back in its home in the corner of the garage, hook it back up to the air hose reel, and we are done. And I have a good serviceable air compressor off Craigslist, safety checked, ready to go for years of use until the motor finally craps out on me, at which point I'll figure out if I do another Craigslist air compressor, if I fix the motor, or if I just go with a brand new one at that point. Depends on how much I actually end up using it. So, hope you enjoyed everything. A start to finish of a Craigslist air compressor purchase, refit and safety check, and then reassembly. I'll be doing more types of videos, things related to some of my other interests. I do a lot of smoking of meat. I do a lot of other home improvement stuff, electric work and plumbing, and I do some small engine repair and some light automotive stuff. So as these things come up in life, I'll try and make a point to videotape them and put them on my channel. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.